Good evening, everybody. We are back. So we opened up the show. We had a lot of great gab, and there was no sound. So we thought maybe we'd come back on so that you guys could join us and hear us a little bit, right?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Can
I don't
you hear me?
know. Can you hear me now? I believe that we can. Let me send a comment here, and then I'm going to be able to chat in the little chat box over here, and we'll make sure that everybody can hear us. But what we were talking about was the market and what has been in the news cycle, and we were talking about the balloon that had come across the United States, and we shot it down just outside of Myrtle Beach. The recovery of that. Ah, great. I already have somebody saying, I can hear you now. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Justin. It's lovely to see you connected to the show. All right. So we're live and we have sound like rock and roll.
What more do we want? Like hot dogs, pizza? I'm gonna order something. You guys want anything?
I don't know. Maybe a stiff drink.
That would work.
Yeah, that would. All right. So you are JC Schweingrouber of Vistafront Partners, and you frequent the show with me because I absolutely love co-hosting with you the news. But you're here because you're a financial advisor and you do such a wonderful job of keeping your eye on the markets. And so, with all of that, now we have a couple more things this week in the news cycle. We do unfortunately have that horrific train accident in the upper Midwest,
Yeah.
and they're talking about it. It's full of chemicals, really. So they're talking about just drilling a giant hole where most of the chemicals are and setting them on fire because they've cleared out. I think it's a mile radius around from this train because it could explode. So it's currently on fire. There's 7.9 earthquake, and that was in Turkey. Uh,
Yeah.
so my heart goes out to all the people of Turkey. I believe Turkey and
There you go.
I'm sorry, Syria. hmm Yeah. So with so many of these wild things going on in the news here in our country and worldwide, are we seeing anything in the market this week so far that's kind of pumping the brakes a little bit?
The only thing that's really pumping the brakes, the market is really focused on earnings right now. So the Federal Reserve, they last week they raised a quarter basis point, um, 25 basis points, and so now we're near that 450, 475 range on rates. And they're thinking in March they'll probably raise one more time, then halt. So the Jay Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, I don't pay so much attention to how much they raise because we sort of know before they do it
Mhm.
as to what kind of language he uses when he comes out for his press conference and makes his statements at 2:30 after they announce at 2 o'clock. So he comes out at 2:30 and does a presser and takes some questions. And so I listen to that language, and I think that's more of a telltale sign of what they're looking forward to. So I don't want to say he sounded dovish, but he sounded dovish. like like we're almost at the end of this. We've put a lot of put a lot of brakes on basically the halt inflation. The numbers are trending just as we expected, and use the word deflationary several times.
Mhm.
That's very different. All right, so they'll have another meeting in March, and it's expected they'll raise another quarter point, and that'll get us to that 475.5 range. But
But I have a question though. So they just raised it 3/4 of a point, right?
that was November.
That was
December
in
they
November.
did 50 basis points,
Mhm.
and then this time they did 25.
Oh, they
So,
only did 25. Okay.
and they're expected to do 25 in March, and
Mhm.
then expected to sort of halt, even though he said it's data dependent. We all know that, So the market actually is projecting still, even though they said they're going to hold rates for high for longer. The market is still sort of expecting by the toward the end of the year possible recession again and starting to cut rates. That's going to be dependent on where inflation is year over year. So they still may hold rates high. So that'll be sort of something interesting to watch as we get closer to that. But um, the 2 year and the 10 year, even though when they raise rates, they go up initially, people are jumping back in there and it's pushing the rates down. So the rates are still the floating rates on the treasuries are still staying lower than what the rates are,
Mm-hmm.
which is, a sign that, hey, we're eventually going to cut. This is, the rates in the marketplace that are being set they're not going higher. All right. So that's sort of a good thing. So we're seeing that. And then people are just, like I said, focusing on corporate earnings. The thing that's going on now is a lot of businesses are starting to announce layoffs. They're either making their numbers or close, but their forward guidance, they're downplaying their future. So, and I understand what they're doing there too. I would rather under promise and over deliver than over promise and under deliver. And they are taking the conservative line and saying, hey, we're next quarter's going to be tough. And, we don't expect a whole lot next quarter. We'll give some expected, whatever analysts will give expected numbers later down the road. But that's going to be sort of, we'll see where we go at that point and see how the economy is doing. So we're back to focusing on important things like, are companies making money? Are they making earnings? Are they losing out because of inflation? Inflation's still trending lower. Are we going to, wrangle inflation in the food sector, for example? Are we going to see that start to come down, trend down? Especially, I don't know about you, but I really don't like paying this price for eggs. So
No, and I found a couple of tricks. I had, it was so cute. So I do watch my local Nextdoor, and I had an older gentleman send me a private message on Nextdoor, and he said, Elizabeth, a long time ago, you posted about, it was like an online market where you can get eggs at a good price. I said, I did, because there's ways that you can buy from your local farmers. So people are really digging around. I have still noticed, and I've said it a couple of times before, but Amazon Green, they've got the best prices. You can still get eggs for $2, $3 and something, which that was high a couple of years ago. Now, when I go to my local grocery store and I took a picture of, those, they're open cartons of like 2 dozen eggs, right? So it's just one carton. It's like wrapped over under something like that. And they were always just the cheap way of getting a large quantity of eggs. They're over $11. I mean, that's like crazy. So I sent a picture to my sister because she's a farmer in Pennsylvania, and she's just, she doesn't see these types of prices in her areas. But I do want to ask you about the jobs. So jobs report came out, and it was about 500,000 of jobs, 500 and something thousand.
Yeah, I was watching that number. I got up and I was waiting on the number to come through, and listening to the guys on CNBC, the little panel, and they're talking, the analysts they have there, and well, I expect this or I expect that. They're kind of making their guesses as to what it's going to be. And the guy who had the highest number was like, he guessed at 215. 1,000. And they're like, oh, you're crazy. Like, they're all like, yeah, we're 150, 130, 175. And he's like, yeah, I know, I'm the outlier here. And it comes out at 517,000.
Right.
And my first thought was like, all right, that how can that be right? Like, there has to be something wrong in that number. But when the economist was kind of sort of breaking down the numbers when they got it and they were going to review it, a lot of it was state and local governments hiring to fill positions that they hadn't hired since the pandemic, right? Like, everything froze. The service sector picked up a lot, which is very much needed, because how many times you go to a restaurant, it says help wanted, so the service sector started to show a lot, which was good. I don't know if people we were talking about this on one of the shows before. How did people hold on to whatever stimulus money from the pandemic that they had, where they didn't work for 2 damn years? And now all of a sudden, like, they're seeing layoffs and they're like, oh, maybe I should go back to work. I don't know how anybody could stretch money that long. Did they even get enough to stretch that long? Or what kind of life are you living on that? It's a pauper's life, it would seem like. But
it seems like it would be. However, there's many different cities. Atlanta has never really been a city for this in particular, but there's many of the large cities where there are 6, 7 different households living in one house because each and every room is rented out. Now we're starting to see that here in Atlanta, where
Wow.
the cost of living, as far as your rent, a mortgage to buy a house in this area, I mean, it has inflated exponentially. There's a new townhouse that is being developed right now. It's just down the street from me. So to buy a townhouse in this area, it has always been about 200,000 or less. I mean, you go much over 200,000, now you're talking about like a really tricked out, nice townhouse.
Yeah.
The sign that's out there is townhouses starting at 700. That is total insanity. The Southeast has never seen anything like that. So there's a lot of these older people, especially, they're trying to rent out rooms in their house because they can't quite make their rent. The food is, I mean, it's really quite interesting. So to your point of how people can still stay home, there's still a lot of incentive if you make at that poverty level. There's a lot of incentive to stay home, even now. Um, that's the hard thing. And the service industry has been hurting for quite a while. We've all seen the signs, help wanted, but it's definitely gotten to the point of, hey, hon, do you want to go out to eat? Do we? I mean, it's going to take twice as long. It's going to take 3 times as long just to get to the table. The food's just going to be, it's hard.
Yeah. I make a mean lasagna better than the Italian place I've been to. So I'd rather, but yeah, it's crazy. I'll be interested to see when next month, when they start doing the revisions on the previous month's jobs reports, where that goes. Uh, I would think that would have to drop. Um, but then you see, when you get a number like that, then you hear the talking heads on the political networks like, well, this is great for the economy, but you're describing a situation with people in their households that is definitely not great for the economy.
No, I would say it's not. I was hopeful that we wouldn't see another federal increase, but inflation is still higher. Cost of living is still higher than what people are bringing to the table. So I think this year is going to be a little interesting, especially based off of what you just mentioned. Do you feel, there was so much talk last year of, oh, we're in a recession, but they're not classifying it as a recession. And, oh, maybe we're not because the numbers came in this way and that way. Do you feel like we are still in a recession? It's going to go through the end of the year before we see an upturn?
I think a lot of people, a lot of households feel like they're in a recession, whether the numbers actually show that or not. And I know over the years, the government has changed how they calculate things. They've changed how they calculate inflation, half a dozen times since the Carter years, because it benefits their narrative better, to do so. Um, so for a lot of people, it does feel like it. And there was a poll that came out. I just saw this earlier today, that of working households, 74% of the people polled felt like that there was going to be a recession this year. Now, even if the economy is great, when that many people feel that way, they tighten their belts, and a recession is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can literally talk yourself into one. Now, for the upper 5%, it doesn't matter much, and inflation never really mattered that much too. If you're in the upper 1%, but everybody else, it's like gas and groceries takes away everything else. They went family vacation, or there went like all the barbecues are going to do this year because we're going to have to change what we do because the price of meat, for example, is skyrocketed, or chicken's starting to go up and things like that. So people change their habits, and we've seen people already change their habits before they drop their spending. So I think when we talk about like how the stock market, for example, and the economy, they're kind of one and the same, but they're decoupled at the same time because the stock market will predict a recession. Like we've seen a horrible 22, right?
Mm-hmm.
But usually the stock market turns around, and because it's always forward looking. So by the time you're in a recession, the stock market usually is turning around and going positive.
Mhm.
Well, we had one heck of a January, didn't we? A lot of the market really turned around. Um, I think we'll still see some choppiness, but I think we're going to be focused more on economic numbers and forward-looking guidance on corporations probably over the next couple of quarters.
Sure.
I don't want to be a predictor, but if you look at the charts and look at the time period we've been in, like a bear market, probably I would say I mean, unless some crazy event happens or some weird collapse, I think probably the worst is probably behind us when it
Mhm.
comes to the stock market. So are we still in that sweet spot to invest? Yeah, but probably not for long. In about 6, 8 months from now, you sure as hell wished you did in 22.
I would
Um,
absolutely agree, and I want to make sure that your information is up here because that's a great point. If anyone's interested in asking you any questions about getting some money in the market now before it sees what I hope to be a really strong uptick, which is kind of what I'm feeling in my gut, even though I don't do what you do, but I do kind of feel the market. And leading into that, so the job placement market, that's in a lull right now. We're not seeing quite as many frequent placements in recruitment. And tech took a big, I guess, hit, you could say. A lot of layoffs have happened. So Dell laid off 6,650. Let's see. And then Wayfair in Boston laid off a bunch, but there's a lot more than that. Dell is a big one right now. I guess that's the most recent one.
yeah, Dell, Amazon, Google, like you hear it. Goldman Sachs, actually, I think they announced they were going to do some layoffs. Even some in those types of companies. So it's coming, and we're going to see more. That's why that jobs number really didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
It's just I'm looking at that with a big question mark. Like, I sort of don't believe what I just heard. I'll give it a month and let them do a revision, and we'll see. We'll see if like the market gets a little choppy and they use that as an excuse that well there was bad news, whatever. But yeah, it didn't make much sense at all. Even have a lot of hiring at the like local and state governments.
Mhm.
Is that 517,000? I mean, even with all the other non-farm payroll jobs, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't, and so I was talking to my younger girls. I call them younger girls, 20s. I was talking to my 20s and one's in college. So I said, you want to make sure that you try to secure your job before you graduate. Now, of course, a lot of parents tell that to your kids. A lot of counselors are going to tell that to the kids in college and stuff. But I said, especially in this market, and I even encouraged her. I said, stay, get your master's, do whatever, find what it is that you're going to do. Stay there, get as degree as you possibly can in it, and then secure a job because the unemployment rate is going to rise. With all these jobs, especially the job report that came out in January, if it's really true, we're going to see a rise in the unemployment rate. Um, and that's something that I didn't look at. Have you looked at those two hand in hand when they released that crazy job report in January?
Yeah, the unemployment rate, I think it ticked down just a little, but it's like, really, I mean, they say you can't have a recession with such a strong, jobs market, but yeah, you can. Apparently, we had one, so we're probably going to have another. Now, the unemployment rate would probably go up, but is it going to be like it was like 7, 8, 9%? Probably not. There's still too many jobs open, more jobs than there are people. So that's one thing to focus on. But yeah, there's nothing worse than coming out of college and still having that debt. You're gonna have to pay back if you've borrowed, and then um, going into a recession, like because no one's going to hire you. But if you're young, you have a better shot at somebody that was like 40 that got laid off.
Mhm.
But you're more likely to hire somebody at 23, 24 years old at half the salary you'd have to pay the person that just left. So I've seen that a lot, unfortunately, in my business with the companies I've been with, when they've had to have what they call a RIF, a reduction in force. Basically, it's a layoff, and then 6 months later, they're hiring the same position again at 2/3 of whatever the salary was the other person just let go.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate, but I think that's one reason why you've seen a lot of folks, especially that get, closer to our age, that the heck with corporate America, let's be our own boss.
Right. And
Pull that off.
I was going to mention that because I know several 50s, and that's older than you and I, but still, anybody in their 50s, they've worked for a very long time and they're expecting retirement. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to take my retirement. And there's a few of them that have already retired that I know of. And now they're trying to find a job to supplement what they get in their pension, because we have this upside downness of being in a recession. Inflation's higher than what everybody's bringing in. And it's a mishmash of a lot of things. There's this one lady, again, I saw in next door, and it's services. She's like, I used to be a school teacher and I'm certified in this and I'm background cleared in this, this, and this. This is what I can help you with. And I think that's the key in this type of environment, is to use the resources that you have within you to be creative.
Yeah.
And the young people, you do whatever you can to get that job, but make sure that you get it now before unemployment rate's too high, because then you have more competition. But speaking about young people, there's one thing that I had asked you last time we were together, and we didn't have enough time to explore it. But younger people that don't have any credit, the average person would say, oh, go get a credit card and just make sure you pay it off all the time. But is that really the best way to start building credit for a young person who, let's say, they're just moving out of mom and dad's house for the first time?
Well, that's one way, but it's not necessarily the best way. Now, if you could pay it off every month, that's great. Then do that. So yeah, the problem is young people, when they leave the nest, they don't have credit. They want to buy a house, or just anything that takes a credit check. It's gonna cost more. Everything costs more. Your first car is gonna cost more than you want, unless you have a significant down payment. And that's just because they don't have time behind them. I went through that. You went through that. When I started college, oh my God, I'd walk past table after table. Hey, get a MasterCard, get a Capital One, get a Visa. I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Would you like a department store credit card for J.C. Penney? Would you like this or that? Okay. But I hate to say it, as much as I loved my parents, they did a piss poor job teaching any of us kids about how to manage debt and what this means and how to do our finances. It just was not anything that was ever part of the discussion. And so that was I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So I don't mind telling people how I've screwed up in life, especially if you're young, so that you don't do some of the dumb stuff that I did. Because I swear I was probably still paying for a pizza from college 5 years after. When you get you got a solid job, you're enjoying life, but you look at all the debt that you've racked up, stupid debt at high rates, and then you have to literally bust your butt doing so much overtime for a year that you have no life just to pay that off. I mean, I'm not talking about doing an extra 5 hours a week. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 every week. You got a vacation? Yeah, you take your vacation because it's paid that week, but you're still going in and working 20 hours. Mm-hmm. So you can get that time and a half, right? It's crazy to do that just to pay off the good time I had in college. And trust me, I had a great time. Everybody knew I had a great time. So it wasn't like Animal House, but I had a wonderful time in college from what I remember. Well, at least that's what the lawsuit said. Right, so, yeah, actually, that's a bad joke. But yeah, if you're young, one of the things I think you need to do is sit down with your parents before you do this and talk about what good spending habits are and good saving habits are. And I don't necessarily mean investing. I just mean good behaviors. Use common sense. Budget. Break your budget down into what areas you're going to spend and what areas you're going to spend while you're at college enjoying yourself. And don't spend outside of your means. Prioritize your expenses. But you're going to be tempted to get credit cards. And if you know that you're going to pay that off every month, that's fine. Have maybe a department store card and maybe a Visa or a MasterCard or something, right? But don't get big balance. Not you want something with a small amount of line of credit. You don't want big lines of credit because at a young age, that's not going to be helpful at all. Start out with 500, at the department store. And if you're trying to build your credit, scrap the debit card. All right, just stop using your debit card, swipe that credit card, and then pay it off every month if you know that's what you're going to do. Another thing that you can do, and this is a very simple thing, but when it comes to your Verizon bill, your cell phone bill, your dish or TV or whatever, set up automatic payments. There is nothing that's going to kill your credit worse than being late on payments.
Mm.
That stuff stays there forever. So yeah, hey, I forgot to pay my cell phone bill on time. Let me go pay it before they shut it off. Or, I didn't pay my TV bill this month, or I'm, forgot to do this or forgot to do that. Or God forbid, you forget a credit card payment, right? Yeah, because they're gonna charge you a penalty plus interest, and some of that interest goes up to 29%. I mean, think about that. You just spent $1, you owe $1.30 the next month. I mean, so pay it off before those interest rates kick in. And learn those good habits. Make sure the credit cards you do have are low balance, and that'll actually build credit fairly quickly. Low balance credit cards that you pay off and have automatic payments set up. But here's the thing that's the easiest way to establish your credit. And mom and dad, you're not going to like hearing this. Piggyback on mom and dad. So mom and dad, if your kid is a very responsible kid, they're away at college, you want to make sure they're okay. You might add them or give them to be permit them to be an authorized user on your credit card, and they'll get a card for themselves. That's a great option because you've had time on your side to build up good credit, and now they're piggybacking on you to build credit from your payments. But you have to make sure they're responsible and not running your bill up and only doing what you're willing to do. But that is one of the fastest ways for a young person to build up credit, is to piggyback off the parents and their good credit.
I don't know about that.
I know the parents don't want to hear that, but kids at school are like, oh yeah, but no, it's not the movie Van Wilder. You can't go living like that.
What would you have done? Like, would you have been very responsible because you know that you were going to get a call from mom and dad if you like bought something crazy?
Yeah, there would have been a significant ass chewing. So I would have been. Okay. This would be like, hey, I need this. I would. There was at one point when I was younger that they did that for me. But it was like I was afraid to use it, so I would call them ahead of time, say, hey, I'm running short and I'm gonna go get a tank of gas. Is that okay? So they would know ahead of time.
What if I put, and I'm assuming the kid that you put on there has to be 18 or older. So if I put my daughter on my credit card, but she never knew about it, so it's only my charges and I'm paying it off every month, is that sort of like a way around that I could build credit for her without worrying about what she's buying drunk?
That would be something you'd have to call the credit card company and ask them. And so if you would have to issue a card out to her if she didn't have to sign a signature card, which a lot of times you have to sign a signature card, right? But
maybe she never gets it.
That's an option. If she's on there and she don't know it, I don't know. I would give them a call and ask them that. But that is the thing. Like, you have to trust your kid. I mean, are they going to go on a bender one weekend, have a great time? You get a $1,400 bill the next month, and they don't know what they bought, but they had a good time on Amazon and at the local pub. I don't know.
Wow.
Okay. But that's an option. So that's something to keep in. But yeah, parents, you got to be really careful about that one. But I think probably the best thing parents can do is before they go off, literally have that uncomfortable discussion about, listen, I want you to sit down and do a budget, and I want to see that budget. I want to go over it with you. I want you to understand how you have to do this. And this is fluid. It's going to change all the time, but you need to know, you need to understand this. And, I always try to tell young people when they're 18, 20, start an investable account. Unfortunately, that does nothing for your credit. So that'd be great if you had an option like that, but that does absolutely nothing. But yeah, some of these things would help. But yeah, just small, low balance credit cards and pay them monthly, and that'll build up good credit quick. That'll save you a lot of money on that first car.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's great advice, especially this piggyback one. It really fundamentally, it's wonderful advice. Um, Makes me really nervous, but but
I would be.
yeah, that's gonna work, and it's gonna work pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it would. That's probably the fastest way to help a young person build up the credit. Um, that and then those low balance credit cards and paying them off every month. But yeah, I just can't stress enough. Just like trying to build good financial habits and good financial common sense, just from a household perspective. That that's not taught in schools the way it should be. Unfortunately, a lot of parents don't have that discuss. Very few have that discussion with their kids, where they send them off to live their life and learn on their own. And man, I sure made enough mistakes. I shot myself in the foot a dozen times. So don't do what I did, kids. Be smarter. I had a great time. I hope you have just as much fun, but in a more responsible way.
So my sixth grader just came home with a book from school, and it's called BizTown. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. It's a great little book. So he's now homeschooling, so he doesn't get to go on the field trip. But I looked at the book and I'm like, we need to still do this book. It shows him how to open a bank account, how to run a hand drawn register of his account, his checking or savings, how to write a check, how to fill out a job application. Like, it's a really fantastic material piece for him to learn about the common things you have to do that is just not taught. So I will have to bring it to our next news session and share it with you beforehand. Um, but getting back to this talk about credit and how young people can build their credit. I know you don't represent any brands, but in your opinion, is there a better credit card to go after?
Uh, I'm not really sure if which one would be a better one to go after. I think, a lot of them are sort of the same, but there are websites. I think like Nerd Wallet, for example. You can go there and you can search around, try to find a credit card that has the lowest interest that you can find, or some offer like cash back and other rewards like travel rewards, things like that. So if you can find something like that and you're paying that off every month, um, generate as many rewards as you can get. So I'd probably go to a website like that and just look through and maybe sit down with your parents and say, hey, how does this compare to maybe what you've done, or which one do you think will work best for me as a student, and go from there, because you'll have a lot of choices. I don't know if you log on to like check your credit on like Credit Karma or places like that, or Experian, they always give you a section of recommended cards if you wanted to look at other cards.
Mhm.
So if you're a young person and you have no credit and you log into something like a Credit Karma, for example, they may have recommendations on there for you to take a look at.
That's great. I'm typing that in. You know, one of the things I did mention to my daughter, because one of my older daughters, she's ready. She needs to build her credit. She is a cash girl. Everything she pays for is in cash. And she's highly afraid of credit cards. And I mentioned to her, I said, we have a family American Express. And there again, you're not endorsing them. I'm not endorsing them either. It just goes along with the story. But we get points back, we get cash back, we get all types of promotional pieces by paying that off each month. And I said, sweetie, I buy groceries with that card knowing that we have a cash budget for it. So instead of paying in cash, I'm paying with the card and then paying the card off every single month. And that card is, that company is, they'll shut off your card if you don't pay after 1 month. Like, there's no forgiveness, which I love about it
Mm-hmm.
because it keeps you on top of it. So I mentioned that to her, and she was just so terrified of it because for her, she's hand to mouth. She's just starting those roots. She doesn't have any cushion in her life right now. So do you do any advising to young people helping them understand these things? Or do you know of maybe different sources, websites, videos, anything like that that would be best for them?
Yeah, there's just doing just a general YouTube search on something like that, or on Rumble. You can find videos of advisors like, um, they're all escaping my brain right now. Who's two most popular ones? Like Susie Orman is one that'll talk a lot about that. Who's the guy? Dave Ramsey is another who talks a lot about that. So you can probably find some of those videos. One thing a young person needs to keep in mind: I carry cash a lot too. Like I'm just that way, and like either I carry cash or like I have no cash. It's all debit card. But you got to keep in mind, if somebody steals, identity theft is a big problem, and that may be one reason she's a little averse to maybe using a card. But if you use a credit card and someone steals your identity, the credit card company is on the hook for that, whatever's expensed. If somebody does that to your debit card, that's all on you. That's your money and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
The bank's not going to reimburse you for that. Mm-hmm. So that is one thing to keep in mind. If you're afraid of identity theft, then use the card. You're mm-hmm. safe for doing that. If it's just like expenses around here, yeah, I'll go in and pay cash at the gas station. I'll go in and pay cash at the restaurants or whatever. So I'm even hesitant to use a debit card online for anything, because I have a good personal friend of mine. She's had her identity stolen twice. And it cost her a tremendous amount of resources, money, stress to clean that up. Mm-hmm. And she's almost afraid to have an online presence anymore.
Right.
And I can understand that. So, but yeah, if you really want to have that safety net where if you're worried about that, then use the credit card. Mm-hmm. Let somebody support, not you.
That's a fantastic point. I mean, so how do I put this? One of our streaming services where you can download music, you can download videos and all this, you can buy games. It has been hacked years ago, and it wiped out all of our music. And it was 6 months of going back and forth and fighting with them. And then it happened again. But now we're paying for it with a credit card and not straight out of debit. And it is so much easier. It was easier to put it into investigation with the company that it was happening on, easier for the credit card to fight it and dispute those charges. And it was somebody that was hacking in and they were buying games. But, I mean, that's like $90 a day worth of gameplay. And yeah, it's a great point about the dispute, how you can dispute charges. I had a good conversation. I had paid for something. I think this was with my debit card. And I called in, and there are a lot of parameters that you have to be within to be able to dispute a charge. So yeah, that's really a great tip that you just gave us about using a credit card, because it is so much easier when and if you have those issues. And so many people have some sort of hacking or identity theft or something.
And it just gets worse every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Well, thank you so much. These are really great tips. Like I said, I'm going to bring that. It's called BizTown. I'm going to bring that BizTown booklet with me, and I'm going to see if they have an online version that I can just send you, because I think you'd love to look at it. But I was really impressed with it. And I'm like, well, sorry, you're going to do the homework part, even though you don't get the field trip. Mean mommy,
What grade is he in?
He's in 6th grade.
Yeah, that's a perfect time to start teaching kids about the value of saving. And you have nothing else like compound interest. Mm-hmm. And if they understand what that is, by the time they're out of high school, they probably can't wait to have a savings account, or can't wait to have an investable account or something like that. I would much rather people be focused on something like that than, half on that and half about the party this weekend when you're at college. Right? You gotta have.
You do. You got to pay yourself first, right? You've told us that so many times.
Yeah, life is short, right? Is that what Ferris Bueller says? That article I wrote, the Ferris Bueller strategy or philosophy of investing.
That's right. That's right. All right. So before you go this evening, tell us the best way that we can get in touch with you and where any latest videos may have been posted.
Just jump online at vistafrontpartners.com. If you want to email me directly, it's jc@vistafrontpartners.com. There's also a little contact button on our website if you want to leave a generic message to us, and we'll get back with you. Our office phone number is on there, so if you don't get me right away, leave a message. I'll get back with you. I know with all the stuff that we've talked about tonight, if, with the future of the market, maybe looking up and people may be getting more excited and planning forward. You always have to keep in mind certain things like how much risk you're willing to take and what the actual goal for your money is. And there's a lot of psychology of your own that you need to think about. So make sure you talk with an advisor before you jump in, or if you're skilled enough to do it yourself, great. But if you need some help, some discussion, if you have somebody you work with, that's awesome. Give them a call. If not, you're welcome to call me. I'll be glad to work with you, talk with you a little bit about it. I don't charge anything for consultations. It doesn't cost a dime to have a chat. So we're fee only. The only time we charge a fee is if you have an account and we manage it for you. So, and maybe that's the best option, maybe not, but we'll find out. Make sure we work well together, and if not, we'll let you know. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, JC. You've devoted so much time to the show, and I really appreciate it because you're helping all of us learn exponentially. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I love seeing people succeed. So I love hearing success stories. I'll just toss this out to the people who are listening. If you have a success story, I know we get a lot of questions about like, hey, I have this issue or that issue, or we've had a problem. If you have a success story, share it because other people need to see your success.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't see the successes or hear the successes. They only hear the problems. And sometimes it's hard to take a step forward unless you know other people are doing it and doing it right and doing it well. So if you have a good success story, share it. Did you send your kids off to college? Did you have a 529 or did you help your son or daughter with their first home purchase by having a custodial account early? Let us know.
You know what? We should talk about custodial accounts. We haven't talked about that too much, have we?
Yeah, we did. We brushed on it once, but we really didn't get into the details. Yeah, we can.
I think that would be a great next show.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Bye now. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for viewing the first show to let me know that the sound was not working on the platforms at which it was broadcasting. I hope that you enjoyed the show. This is a Caffeinated Cooper Show. If you have any comments, any requests, please send them to us at ecooperstudios@gmail.com. And as always, we are blessed. You are blessed. I love you. And I'll see you very soon. Bye now.